Warning: strobe effects are used in this video. Those with sensitivities should not view. This presentation contains content that could be considered disturbing to younger viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. In nearly every religion and way of life, ghosts and spirits have been depicted in malevolent and bizarre ways from some of the earliest records of man. Today, a large number of people believe that there are forces at work beyond that of the living. Some believe that ghosts are evil spirits that try to deter you from seeing the light of God. Sightings and stories from across the globe have lured people into believing, which brings us to the happiest place on earth, Disneyland. Reddit is a place where a lot of people can share their stories and experiences without revealing their identity. Some Disney cast members have utilized this platform to share some of their scariest stories. The tales you are about to hear occur when the park is closed and the crowds have vanished. What is surely puzzling is that there seems to be a central location of where these events occur. One cast member shared his experiences at the Haunted Mansion. I used to work Haunted Mansion in attractions. I can verify that that place is very spooky, but that's what the Imagineers wanted. The environment is so spooky that no matter how much I told myself there was nothing there, I would constantly spook myself. According to this person, there are always at least 3 people working at the Haunted Mansion at closing. One watching the cameras in the tower that does paperwork, and the other 2 to walk the abandoned track to pick up trash. On several occasions, the person in the tower watching the cameras has seen 3 people walking in the tracks, even though there are only 2 people. 3 shadows would be seen on the track, and only 2 people would come back at the end. So who was this 3rd shadow? Was there a spirit following around the cast members? Or was it someone or something lurking in the shadows? Whatever it was, something was stalking the unsuspecting. What seems like almost a coincidence is the reports of a little boy who lost his way on the Haunted Mansion. According to legends, a woman was seen spreading ashes on the Haunted Mansion without the permission of Disneyland. Since then, people have heard a little boy crying, and he has been spotted on Pirates of the Caribbean right next door. The little boy has unofficially been named Timmy and can be seen wearing a blue baseball cap. This is not the only instance where cast members confess to seeing or hearing things after the park is closed. You may think that spreading ashes is an urban legend, but it's true.
Was shut down after it appears someone may have dumped cremated remains. Witnesses say they saw a female rider on the Pirates of the Caribbean sprinkling a powdery substance into the water last Friday, but she couldn't be located and there wasn't enough of the substance left to be tested by police.
One cast member was closing up shop in Critter Country long after the crowds have left, and then this happened. I'm the new guy. Typically, we get off around 1:30, and there would be a group of us that would walk on stage from Splash Exit to Harbor Point. Well, this one night I'm off at 1:45, and no one wanted to wait for me since they didn't know me. I clock out and begin my walk. Since it's so late, I took for granted that security had already cleared the park of guests and pulled out my phone to check Facebook or whatever. As I round the corner of Splash's barn door entrance and get a view of the path up to the briar patch, I see a little girl, about 6 or maybe 7, in a church dress. His response that she was a lost girl and that security had missed her during their final checks. The cast member had called out to her to see if she was okay, but there was no response. The person began to look around for help, and when they looked back, the little girl had unnaturally moved right in front of him. Expecting a collision, the cast member closed his eyes, but nothing happened. Opening his eyes, he saw the little girl was gone. Was this a playful spirit or an entity trying to terrorize those who stand in its path? According to that same cast member, this was not an isolated incident. Over the years, I've talked to many CMs, and while a bunch have similar stories, all the stories only revolve around the front of Critter Country, Norland Square, and Tom Sawyer Island. I don't know how true this is, but based on how often something like this happens, I believe it. Everyone knows her as Mary. The story goes that she was a little girl that loved the Pirates of the Caribbean, Bear Country, and the island. Near the time the mansion opened, she was struggling and losing to leukemia. Sometime the early 70s, she lost her battle and her parents wanted to spread her ashes in Disneyland. It was becoming so popular to do in the Haunted Mansion, and they probably guessed it would be swept up. So they spread her ashes along Tom Sawyer Island. So many people have said they see her walking around the NOCC area, and attraction CMs see her a lot walking from the island into the rest of the west side, which was her favorite place in the park. That's how I've heard it from many CMs, and I take it as fact. In 1984, a 48-year-old woman died while riding the Matterhorn at Disneyland. This tragic accident occurred when the woman was ejected from the ride vehicle during a drop section of the ride. It is now referred to as Dollys Dip. According to one cast member, the attraction has been haunted ever since. This is a personal account of the unexplained incident. Every time I was unlucky enough to get a track walking shift, I had an uneasy feeling, like someone was watching me, she wrote. The feeling was always the worst in the big cavern in the middle of the ride and at Dollys Dip, the spot where she died. In fact, the working lights in the tunnels near Dollys Dip seemed to be always burnt out. In 6 years, I don't think I ever saw those lights working. One dark and gloomy night in 1966, teens were celebrating the first day of the rest of their lives at Disneyland's annual grad night. All except one. One teen by the name of Thomas thought he could sneak into the park. Thomas made it to an employee parking lot by scaling a 6-foot and a 16-foot fence. Climbing onto the monorail track would surely gain him access to the park. Thomas managed to climb 20 feet onto the trestle of the monorail. What he did not realize is that would be the worst mistake of his life. Just down the track, the monorail was cruising at a speed of 25 miles per hour, full of unsuspecting passengers. Fortunately enough, 3 security guards saw the youth on the track and immediately yelled for him to get down. Thomas appeared to crouch by a plastic canopy which extends on either side of the track, hoping it would pass him over. The monorail, still pursuing at full speed, made impact with Thomas. The operator never saw the boy on the track, as the train felt an unusual bump and loss of power. Legend has it that a spectral figure can be seen on the darkest nights walking the track. As the monorail approaches, he seems to disappear. One of the most infamous accidents at Disneyland is that of Debbie. It was a sizzling summer of 1974. The recent graduate of Santa Ana High took a hostess job at the America Sings attraction in Disneyland. America Sings was an attraction that had 6 different show sequences. Each would transition because the audience seating area would rotate around the stages. During the prologue and load-in sequence of the show, a hostess would greet the audience and give them safety instructions. After the prologue sequence, the audience seats would transition to the next stage. The moving audience room had walls that met with the walls of the stage, forming a complete room. The gaps between the walls were almost non-existent. As the prologue ended, Debbie was standing in the wrong spot as the room transitioned and was crushed between the walls. A scream echoed through the room, and guests thought it was part of the show, but it was not. Some say that Debbie has become a guardian angel to those who come too close to the walls, in the form of a faint voice warning them to be careful, until the ride closed in 1988. Are there ghosts at Disneyland? I guess it really depends on what you believe. Whatever you believe, be sure to keep an open mind, because that shadow in the darkness may not be what you think.